Leonardo asked Mona Lisa to look right. Also, we look at Michelangelo's work, that why he chose God to not to be here, but here in his work. Also, we talked about Van Gogh, why Van Gogh placed the tree not here, but here in his work. So we talked about basically balance. We talked about the fact that the dark colors are better on the right to balance the more heavier part of the picture, which is on the left. So we basically talked about these. I would like to ask you one thing before I go on with today's speech. Do you think, ladies and gentlemen, this is art or not?
Yes.
This is not, actually, because this is pure symmetry. And symmetry is boring. That's why art is looking after balance, but not symmetry. So basically, what art is about is non-symmetrical balance. So we talked about this. Okay, this is not symmetrical, but it is balanced. We talked about the eyes traveling through visual arts, which is at this direction. We talked about rising diagonal and so on. And finally, we talked about the golden, the golden ratio. So, when we look at the history, in ancient visual arts, they did not have any perspective. And they had basically two dimensions. As Renaissance came, and with the invention of glasses, humans started to imitate the third dimension. And also, the humans, the artists, tried precision on their artistic works. So basically what they did was they were reconsidering those previous naive way of drawing or painting pictures. Do we have to continue like this, or do we have to be more precise, and do we have to imitate the third dimension? So that's what they did. Plus, they had some financing from the church, from the royal families, or from the king. So basically what Renaissance art was that. Also, during Renaissance, the source of light was a problem. And they were painting the shadow as well. So in the past, the source of light was the holy figure, which was the Jesus, either the baby Jesus or the, coming down from the cross and so on. That was the source of light. But the artists later on, they were showing the source of light such as a candle or coming from this direction, and they were painting the shadows as well. So that's a question, whether we have to indicate the source of light or not, whether we have to paint the shadow or not. After the invention of camera, people saw that the camera did the best. So another reconsideration started. Do I have to imitate, or do I have to race with camera, what camera does, or do I have to do something different than the camera can? So people the artists started to reconsider whether I have to paint the shadow, whether I have to show the direction of light, whether I have to be precise or not. So I have to do something different than the camera can do. So that's when the Impressionism, and after that, Expressionism started. So during those years, which was the late of 1800s, the artists started to loosen their brushworks. They started to use the colors differently than before. Of course, they still respected the perspective, but they did it differently. And the work that they have put forward seemed like uncompleted type of work. That's what most of the critics were telling about those Impressionists. Then came the Expressionism. What Expressionists did was that they tried to not do what the Impressionists did, but they tried to convey their feelings by using strong colors, and they started to distort the forms. That's what they did. And this came right after the Impressionism era. After that, as you may all know, Picasso brought the Cubism, which totally rejected the sense of perspective. And of course, other artists, you know, they just refused to use the shadow painting and so on. And also the Turkish artists, especially as one of the great artists of Turkey says, you have to paint your dreams. You should not try to race with a camera. So this is, I think, the main reconsideration of today's art. Today's visual artists should not race with the camera. So the camera cannot draw or paint your dreams. So that is art. I would advise you, when you go to those countries, as I said last week, I would like to repeat the same thing. Please go to those countries where art is not forbidden and where all these eras have been lived. And please visit those museums when you have time.